I gripped my wine glass tighter as my mother-in-law's shrill laughter echoed across the dining room. Another family dinner, another opportunity for them to tear down everything I've built. The crystal stemware trembled slightly in my hand, threatening to spill the expensive Cabernet I'd brought to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. An online business? Josephine's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Darling, when are you going to get a real job? Something respectable like what Marvin does? My name is Alexa, and I've spent the last 5 years listening to these people diminish my dreams while I quietly built an empire right under their noses. Mom's right, honey. Marvin's condescending smile made my stomach turn. Playing shop on the internet isn't exactly securing our future. Maybe it's time to consider that position Janet mentioned at her firm. I forced a smile, the same one I'd perfected over years of these gatherings. The business is doing fine, actually. We just signed our 10,000th customer last week. 10,000 people buying $5 trinkets? Josephine snorted, cutting into her overcooked roast. That's hardly something to brag about. Speaking of real business, Marvin interrupted, straightening his tie. We just closed a major deal at Crawford Corp. The board's talking about a promotion. I watched them beam at each other, their shared delusion of superiority almost comical. If they only knew about the meetings I'd been having with Silicon Valley's top venture capitalists, or the IPO paperwork sitting in my private office safe. More wine, Alexa. Maria, my best friend and tonight's saving grace, appeared at my elbow with a fresh bottle. She was the only one who knew the truth about my company's success. Please. I held out my glass, catching her knowing smirk. Tell us more about this promotion, darling, Josephine cooed at Marvin. Will you finally be able to buy that summer house we talked about? I bit back a laugh. The summer house they'd been dreaming about cost roughly what my company made in a single day now. But they'd never bothered to ask about my actual numbers, too busy assuming I was playing at business while Marvin climbed his precious corporate ladder. We should know by next quarter, Marvin replied, loosening his collar, though the market's been a bit unstable lately. Maria caught my eye. We both knew why Crawford Corp was struggling. Their outdated business model was bleeding customers to innovative online platforms like mine. Alexa, dear. Josephine leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake concern. You know we only want what's best for you. This little hobby of yours was cute at first, but don't you think it's time to grow up? The room fell silent. Even Marvin looked uncomfortable, though he made no move to defend me. I set down my wine glass, the soft clink against the table masking the sound of my last thread of patience snapping. You're right, Josephine, I said quietly. It is time to grow up. Oh, thank goodness you're finally seeing reason. She clasped her hands together in victory. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. I met her gaze steadily. About the future. About what it means to build something real. Maria shifted beside me, recognizing the steel in my voice. She'd been there through every late night, every setback, every triumph they'd dismissed. She knew what was coming. That's wonderful news, Marvin chimed in, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back before he could touch me. Yes, it is. I stood up, smoothing my dress. I think it's time for some changes around here. Big changes. What do you mean? Josephine's smile faltered slightly. You'll see. I picked up my purse, nodding to Maria. Thank you for dinner. I have an early meeting tomorrow with my investment team. Investment team? Marvin laughed. For your little website? I paused at the dining room doorway, turning back to face them one last time. You know what the funny thing is? You've both been so busy looking down on me, you never bothered to look up my company's actual value. Their confused expressions were priceless. As I walked out to my car, I could hear Josephine's voice floating through the open window. What on earth is she talking about? I smiled, pulling out my phone to check my emails. The IPO paperwork was ready for my signature, and my team had just confirmed our company's current valuation. Tomorrow, everyone would know exactly what I'd been building while they laughed. But tonight, I had revenge to plan. You should have seen their faces, Maria laughed, handing me a coffee as we sat in my private office the next morning. I thought Josephine was going to choke on her wine when you mentioned the investment team. I took a sip, savoring both the premium roast and the memory. 5 years of condescension and mockery. 5 years of, when are you getting a real job? while I was building this. I gestured around my sleek corner office, 40 stories above Silicon Valley. Remember when you started? Maria perched on my desk, scrolling through old photos on her phone. Working from your tiny apartment, using that rickety card table as a desk? God, those were the days. I smiled, remembering the determination that drove me. Remember when the website crashed during our first big sale? You didn't sleep for 3 days straight. Maria showed me a photo from that time. Me, surrounded by empty energy drink cans, coding frantically on my laptop. But you fixed it yourself, saved thousands in developer fees. My phone buzzed. Another email from the IPO team. Speaking of saving money, I said, pulling up the secure documents. Wait until you see these numbers. Maria's eyes widened as she scanned the valuation report. Holy shit, Alexa. You're going to be worth more than Marvin's entire company. I finished for her. That's just the beginning. A knock at the door interrupted us. Jenny, my assistant, poked her head in. Your 10 a.m. is here, and there's something else you should see. She handed me a tablet open to a financial news site. The headline made my heart race. Crawford Corp stocks plummet amid mismanagement concerns. Isn't that? Maria started. Marvin's company? Yes. I scrolled through the article, my hands shaking slightly. Looks like someone's been cooking the books to hide their losses. The timing couldn't be better, Maria said quietly. Your IPO announcement will hit just as they're scrambling to explain this mess. I set down the tablet, memories flooding back. Marvin laughing at my business plan. Josephine telling everyone at their country club that her daughter-in-law was going through a phase. The countless dinner parties where I sat silently while they bragged about Marvin's corporate success. Send in my 10 a.m., I told Jenny, and get me everything you can find on Crawford Corp's current stock prices and major shareholders. As Jenny left, Maria grabbed my arm. What are you planning? Remember what you taught me when we were starting out? I asked, straightening my blazer. Always look for opportunities in chaos. Alexa, Maria's voice held a warning note. Don't let revenge cloud your judgment. You've worked too hard to risk it all now. I'm not risking anything. I pulled up my banking app, checking the private accounts I'd been building for years. I'm simply preparing to make a strategic investment in an undervalued company. My 10 a.m. turned out to be perfect timing. A senior partner from one of Silicon Valley's top venture capital firms. As we discussed final IPO details, my phone kept buzzing with updates about Crawford Corp's falling stock price. After the meeting, Maria cornered me again. I did some digging during your meeting. Want to know what I found? She pulled out her laptop, showing me internal documents from Crawford Corp. How did you get these? I asked, impressed. Let's just say Marvin's assistant isn't as loyal as he thinks. Maria pointed to several highlighted sections. Look at these projections. They've been lying to their shareholders for months. When this goes public, their stock will be worthless, I finished, a plan forming in my mind. And the company will be vulnerable to a takeover. Exactly. Maria closed her laptop, fixing me with a serious look. But Alexa, are you sure you want to go down this road? Taking over your husband's company. It's not just business anymore. This is personal. I walked to the window, looking out over the city I'd conquered one digital transaction at a time. It became personal the moment they decided to treat me like a joke. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marvin. Dinner tonight? Mom wants to apologize for yesterday. I showed the message to Maria, who rolled her eyes. Now they want to apologize? Let me guess. He's heard rumors about your IPO? Probably. I typed a quick reply, accepting the dinner invitation. But tonight's dinner is going to be very different from last night's. What are you going to do? I opened my safe, pulling out a folder of carefully gathered documents. I'm going to give them exactly what they always wanted. Proof that I can run a real business. Maria's eyes widened as she realized what I was planning. Oh my God, you're going to buy out Crawford Corp? I smiled, checking my lipstick in the reflection of my awards wall. That's just the beginning of what I'm going to do. The ink was still wet on the IPO paperwork when my phone lit up with Marvin's call. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Hey honey, running late for dinner? I asked, watching the sun set over the city from my office. Listen, slight change of plans, Marvin said, his voice tight with stress. Can we do dinner at home instead of the restaurant? Mom's not feeling well. Translation. Crawford Corp's stock had dropped another 15% today, and Josephine couldn't face the country club crowd. Of course, I replied sweetly. I'll pick up some wine on the way home. As I hung up, Maria burst into my office waving her tablet. You're not going to believe this. Someone leaked Crawford's real numbers to the press. I scanned the breaking news article, my heart racing. The company's losses were even worse than we'd thought. Any idea who leaked it? Maria's grin was downright wicked. Let's just say Marvin's assistant was very grateful for that job offer at your company's new corporate division. The division that doesn't exist yet, I reminded her, gathering my things. But will, once you acquire Crawford. Maria handed me a folder. By the way, your investment team confirmed it. You have enough liquid assets to buy a controlling interest when their stock bottoms out tomorrow. I slipped the folder into my briefcase, checking my appearance one last time. Perfect timing for tonight's dinner. Are you really going through with this? Maria asked, following me to the elevator. Watch the news tomorrow morning, I winked, stepping inside. And keep your phone on. At home, I found Marvin and Josephine huddled over laptops in the living room. They snapped them shut as soon as I walked in. Alexa, darling, Josephine's attempt at warmth couldn't hide her frazzled appearance. I hope you don't mind the change of plans. I've been feeling rather delicate today. I brought wine. I held up the bottle, a $500 Bordeaux I'd been saving for a special occasion. Thought we could all use something nice. Marvin's eyes narrowed at the label. That's expensive. Since when do you buy wines like that? Oh, I've had some good news at work. I moved to the kitchen, hiding my smile as I heard them whispering behind me. Speaking of work, Marvin followed me, his voice unusually hesitant. I heard some interesting rumors today. About your company? I poured 3 glasses, taking my time. Really? What kind of rumors? Something about major investors? An IPO? He tried to sound casual, but I could hear the tension. Why didn't you tell me? The same reason you haven't told me about Crawford's real financial situation, I replied calmly, meeting his eyes. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? Dinner's getting cold. Josephine called from the dining room, her voice sharp with anxiety. We sat down to the catered meal I'd ordered. No way was I cooking tonight. Josephine picked at her food, shooting nervous glances between Marvin and me. So, she finally broke the silence. Alexa, about yesterday. We may have been a bit harsh about your business ventures. May have been? I took a slow sip of wine. What your mother means, Marvin cut in, is that we should have shown more support. And now that we understand the scale of your success, now that you think I might be useful to you, I corrected him, now that Crawford Corp is in free fall and you're desperate for investors. The silence was deafening. Josephine's fork clattered against her plate. How did you, Marvin started, know about Crawford? I pulled out my phone, showing them the news article. It's amazing what people will tell you when they think you're just playing at business. This is absurd, Josephine sputtered. Marvin, tell her she's mistaken about Crawford. Instead, Marvin leaned forward, his expression calculating. Actually, if you're interested in investing, we should talk. With your company's backing. Oh, we'll talk. I stood up, unable to maintain the charade any longer. Tomorrow, in fact, I have a meeting with Crawford's board of directors at 9 a.m. What? They said in unison. I'm their mystery investor, I announced, savoring every word, the one who's been quietly buying up shares all week. Marvin's face went from pale to red. That's impossible. You couldn't afford... Actually, I pulled the folder from my briefcase, sliding it across the table. I can afford to buy controlling interest in Crawford Corp twice over. These are the official numbers from my IPO filing. Feel free to verify them. As they frantically flipped through the documents, I gathered my things. I should get some rest. Big day tomorrow, presenting my restructuring plan to the board. Restructuring? Josephine's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. I paused at the dining room door. Starting with the executive team. Sleep well. The last thing I heard as I climbed the stairs was Marvin's strangled voice. Mom, she's going to take my company. The morning news was already running stories about my IPO when Marvin knocked on my home office door. I'd spent the night there, preparing for the board meeting. Honey, his voice had that fake sweetness I'd grown to despise. Can we talk? I opened the door to find him in his best suit, hair perfectly styled. About what, Marvin? Your company's collapse or my successful little hobby? Look, I know I've been unsupportive. He stepped in, eyes darting to the financial reports spread across my desk. But we're married. We're supposed to be a team. Maybe we could work together on this? A team? I laughed, pointing to my laptop screen showing Crawford's true financial statements. Like how you've been such a team player hiding these losses? That's complicated business strategy. He loosened his tie nervously. But with your company's resources, we could turn things around. Together. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. Urgent, check your email, now. Excuse me, I said, opening my inbox. The subject line made my blood run cold. Confidential, planned smear campaign against rising tech CEO. What's wrong? Marvin asked, noticing my expression change. Bad news? I scanned the email quickly. Screenshots of messages between Marvin and his PR team, planning to leak false information about my company right before the IPO. Nothing important, I lied, forwarding everything to my lawyers. Just last-minute details for the board meeting. About that meeting, Marvin perched on the edge of my desk, trying to look casual. I've been thinking, maybe we should delay it. Give us time to discuss this as a family. My phone buzzed again. Maria, he's trying to buy time to launch the smear campaign. Don't let him. Actually, I stood up, gathering my papers. The meeting has been moved up. I need to go. What? But Marvin followed me downstairs, where I found Josephine waiting in our living room. Alexa, darling. She rushed forward, arms open. I've been telling all my friends about your amazing success. We're so proud. Really? I stepped back from her attempted embrace. Yesterday, I was playing shop on the internet. Today, you're proud? Oh, sweetheart, you know I didn't mean... Save it. I checked my watch. I have a board to meet. Wait, Marvin grabbed my arm. You can't do this. Think about what people will say. A wife taking over her husband's company? I yanked my arm free. You should have thought about that before planning your little PR attack. His face went white. How did you... Next time you plot to destroy someone's reputation, make sure their best friend hasn't hired half your staff. I opened the front door, then turned back. Oh, and Marvin, I'd start packing up your office. The Crawford Corp boardroom fell silent as I walked in. 10 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat at the head of the table, exactly where Marvin usually sat. Gentlemen, I smiled, opening my laptop. Shall we begin? Mrs., one director started. Ms., I corrected him. And please, call me Alexa. We're going to be working very closely together. This is highly irregular, another director protested. Mr. Crawford should be here. Mr. Crawford is currently attempting to damage my company's reputation to save his own, I announced, projecting the leaked emails onto the screen behind me. Not exactly the behavior we want in a CEO, is it? Murmurs filled the room as they read the evidence. Now, I continued, pulling up my presentation, let's discuss how we're going to save this company from your current management's incompetence. My phone lit up with a call from Josephine. I declined it, only to receive an immediate text. Please don't do this to my son. I'm begging you. I thought about all the times she'd belittled me at family gatherings, all the snide remarks about my little website, all the ways she'd encouraged Marvin to dismiss my achievements. As you can see, I addressed the board, ignoring my phone's constant buzzing. My company's resources and innovative approach are exactly what Crawford Corp needs to survive in the digital age. 2 hours later, I emerged from the boardroom victorious. The vote had been unanimous. Marvin was out, and I was in. Maria was waiting in my office when I returned. Well, I collapsed into my chair, exhausted but triumphant. It's done. I'm the new CEO of Crawford Corp. And Marvin should be receiving the news right about... My phone chimed with a news alert. Now. Maria poured 2 glasses of champagne. To Karma? I raised my glass, but before I could respond, my office door burst open. Marvin stood there, face red with rage, waving his termination notice. You manipulative bitch, he snarled. You planned this all along. I took a calm sip of champagne. No, darling, you did this to yourself. I just saw an opportunity in chaos. Isn't that what real business people do? Security, Maria called through the intercom as Marvin advanced toward my desk. You can't do this to me, he growled, his perfectly pressed suit now wrinkled and disheveled. This company is my life. Was your life, I corrected him, standing my ground. until you drove it into the ground while mocking my success. Two security guards appeared in the doorway. Marvin spun around, his face contorting. You can't throw me out of my own building. Actually, I held up the board's resolution. It's my building now, and you're trespassing. This isn't over, he spat as the guards approached. Your lawyers already know, I cut him off, about the cooked books, the hidden losses, and your planned smear campaign. Would you like me to continue? The fight seemed to drain out of him. His shoulders slumped as the guards took his arms. Wait, I called as they started to lead him out. Your office needs to be cleared by end of day. I'll have your things sent home. To the guest room. His head snapped up. What? Oh, didn't I mention? I smiled sweetly. I'm filing for divorce. The papers should be delivered this afternoon. After Marvin was escorted out, Maria locked the door and turned to me. That was intense. Are you okay? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Josephine's name flashed on the screen. Put it on speaker, Maria suggested. I want to hear this. I answered, keeping my voice professional. Hello, Josephine. How dare you? She shrieked. After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I laughed. You mean like treating me like dirt for 5 years? Or maybe you mean undermining every achievement I've ever had? We gave you connections, status, a place in society. No, I said firmly. I gave myself those things. While you were busy looking down your nose at my little hobby, I was building an empire. You've destroyed my son's reputation, she wailed. Actually, he did that himself. I just exposed it. I pulled up another email on my screen. By the way, how's that country club membership working out? Silence. Then, what do you mean? Well, since Crawford Corp's membership was tied to Marvin's position as CEO and given the company's new leadership, I let the implications sink in. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. Check your inbox. The cancellation notice should be there already. The line went dead. Maria slow-clapped. Brutal, but deserved. My phone buzzed again, a text from Marvin. Please, we can work this out. Don't do this to us. Us? I showed Maria the message. There hasn't been an us since he chose to side with his mother over his wife. A knock at the door interrupted us. Jenny poked her head in. Your legal team is here with the divorce papers, and you might want to see this. She handed me a tablet open to a financial news site. The headline read, Tech CEO's hostile takeover of Crawford Corp. Inside the family drama. Great, I sighed. Now everyone knows. Actually, Maria scrolled through the comments. People are loving it. Look at these responses. Queen behavior. Corporate karma at its finest. You're trending on Twitter. Another knock. This time it was my PR team looking excited. Ma'am, we've had calls from every major business magazine. They want your story. The woman who built a tech empire while her husband and mother-in-law mocked her. It's media gold. I was about to respond when my phone lit up with a final text from Marvin. Mom's on her way to your office. She's not taking no for an answer. Perfect timing, I smiled, pulling up a document on my computer. Jenny, when Josephine arrives, show her straight in. What are you planning? Maria asked after everyone left. Remember how I said buying Crawford Corp was just the beginning? I turned my screen to show her. Look what else Marvin's been hiding. Maria's eyes widened as she read. The family trust he's been embezzling from his own mother? And now I own the company that controls that trust. I heard the elevator ding. Right on cue. Josephine burst in, designer handbag swinging like a weapon. You ungrateful little... Before you continue, I held up my hand. You might want to see what your precious son has been doing with your money. I turned my screen toward her. The color drained from her face as she read. This can't be true, she stammered. Oh, but it is. The question is, I leaned forward, what are you going to do about it? Josephine sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade crumbling. All this time. He played us both, I said softly. The difference is, I figured it out and did something about it. She looked up at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in 5 years. What happens now? I pushed a folder across my desk. That depends on whether you're ready to make a deal with someone who actually knows how to run a business. The morning of my company's IPO, I stood in front of Crawford Corp's executive boardroom, watching Marvin clean out his office across the hall. He'd insisted on doing it himself, one last grasp at dignity. Your morning coffee, Ms. CEO. Maria appeared beside me, handing me a steaming cup. Ready for the big show? Before I could answer, the elevator dinged. Josephine stepped out, looking different than I'd ever seen her. Gone were the designer labels and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore a simple business suit and a determined expression. Right on time, I nodded to her. Shall we? The boardroom was packed with executives, shareholders, and press. All eyes turned to us as we entered. Ladies and gentlemen, I took my place at the head of the table. Thank you for coming. As you know, today marks a historic merger between two companies and some significant changes in leadership. Marvin appeared in the doorway, a box of personal items in his arms. What's she doing here? He glared at Josephine. Sit down, Marvin. His mother's voice could have frozen hell. You've done enough damage. The room buzzed with whispers as he slunk into a chair at the far end of the table. I pulled up the presentation screen. First item of business, Crawford Corp's merger with my tech company, effective immediately. I clicked through the slides. Second, the restructuring of the family trust assets. Marvin's box slipped from his hands, photos and awards clattering to the floor. Mother, you can't. Actually, Josephine cut him off. I can and I am. The trust board voted this morning, unanimously. I continued as if there hadn't been an interruption. The combined companies will be rebranded under my tech firm's name. Our first order of business will be addressing the creative accounting that's been happening under previous management. This is ridiculous. Marvin stood up, his chair scraping loudly. Mother, after everything I've done, everything you've done? Josephine's voice trembled with rage. You mean like stealing from my trust? Lying to shareholders? Or perhaps you mean trying to destroy your wife's company to cover your tracks? The press corps was frantically taking notes. This was better than any press release we could have planned. I can explain, Marvin started. Save it for the SEC investigation, I interrupted, clicking to the next slide. Now, about those offshore accounts you thought nobody knew about? The color drained from his face. You wouldn't. Already did. I nodded to the back of the room, where two men in suits stood up. Gentleman from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, he's all yours. What followed was chaos. Cameras flashed as Marvin was escorted out, protesting loudly. Josephine watched with tears in her eyes, but her spine was steel. Moving on. I raised my voice over the commotion. Let's discuss the future. Our IPO goes live in exactly 1 hour. The projections are impressive. The meeting continued, but I could see the reporters sneaking out to file their stories. By lunch, we'd be trending on every business news site in the country. After the meeting, Josephine caught my arm. Alexa, I owe you an apology. Many apologies. Save them, I said, but not unkindly. Actions matter more than words. Are you ready to do your part? She nodded firmly. I've already spoken to the country club board. They're very interested in hearing about how a woman-led tech company saved a traditional business from collapse. Good. I checked my phone. Maria had sent me the first headlines. Tech Queen's Justice, Corporate Takeover Exposes Family Fraud. What happens now? Josephine asked quietly. Now? I smiled, showing her my phone's stock ticker app. We watch my company's value skyrocket while your son's lawyers try to explain where all that money went. And us? She gestured between us. Can we ever... That depends. I turned to face her fully. Can you accept that your daughter-in-law isn't just playing at business anymore? My dear, she laughed softly. I think you've more than proved that. My phone buzzed. A message from Marvin's lawyer requesting a meeting. Delete. One more thing, I told Josephine. That summer house you always wanted, the one Marvin promised but never delivered. She looked confused. What about it? Check your email. Consider it a signing bonus for your new position on our board of directors. I started walking toward my office. Oh, and Josephine. Yes? Next time you're there, remember, it was bought with money from my little online hobby. As I walked into my office, Maria was waiting with champagne. The stock market opens in 5 minutes. Ready to become a billionaire? I took a glass, looking out over the city that had watched me rise from a card table desk to this view. Ready to show them what playing shop on the internet really looks like. The stock has doubled since opening, Maria announced, bursting into my office 3 weeks after the IPO. And you've got to see this. She tossed a magazine on my desk, my face on the cover with the headline, The Queen of Tech, How one woman turned tables on corporate sexism. That's not even the best part, she grinned, pulling up a video on her tablet. Look who's making the rounds on daytime TV. There was Josephine, perfectly poised on a morning show couch, speaking passionately about women in business. My daughter-in-law taught me a valuable lesson about prejudice and preconceptions. Now, as a board member of her company, I'm committed to supporting female entrepreneurs. Well, that's a plot twist, I laughed, signing the last of Marvin's divorce papers. Speaking of plot twists, have you seen the latest from his legal team? No guilty plea? Maria guessed. Better. He's offering to testify against his old board members in exchange for a lighter sentence. I closed the folder with satisfaction. Turns out he wasn't the only one cooking the books. My office phone buzzed. Ms. Alexa, your 3 o'clock is here. The Silicon Valley Women's Business Association? Send them in. I straightened my jacket, then turned to Maria. Ready to launch our mentorship program? The conference room filled with young women entrepreneurs, their eyes wide as they took in the view from the top floor. I recognized that look, the same hunger for success I'd had 5 years ago. Ladies, I began, welcome to your first day of actually playing shop on the internet. Laughter rippled through the room. They'd all read the stories about Marvin's dismissive comments. 3 weeks ago, I took this company public at $50 a share. Today, we closed at $127. I clicked through slides showing our growth. But more importantly, we're about to change how business is done in Silicon Valley. The elevator dinged, and Josephine walked in, carrying folders. Sorry I'm late. The venture capital team needed signatures on the new fund. Perfect timing, I nodded to her. Ladies, meet our head of our new Women in Tech Investment Fund. She used to think online business was just a hobby. Now she manages a $1 billion portfolio dedicated to funding female founders. Josephine distributed the folders. Inside you'll find details about our mentorship program, seed funding opportunities, and, she smiled at me, a little story about why you should never underestimate a woman with a laptop and a dream. After the presentation, Maria caught me staring at Marvin's old office, now being renovated into a startup incubator space. Missing him? She teased. Missing who? I grinned. Oh, you mean the guy who's currently negotiating his plea deal? Funny how karma works. My phone chimed with a news alert. Crawford Corp fraud case. Expands. Former CEO names. Speaking of karma, Maria read over my shoulder. Looks like your ex-husband's country club buddies are about to have a very bad day. Ms. Alexa? Jenny appeared. The contractors need your approval on the incubator space design, and there's a delivery for you. She wheeled in a familiar card table, my first desk, rescued from storage. What's this doing here? I ran my hand over the worn surface. That was me, Josephine stepped in. I thought it might inspire our mentees. Show them where you started. Where we all start, I corrected her. With nothing but determination and a dream everyone else calls crazy. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marvin's sister. Just saw you on the cover of Forbes. Guess that little website wasn't so little after all. P.S. Mom seems happier now than she's been in years. Ready for the next board meeting? Maria checked her watch. We're announcing the global expansion. Actually, I looked around at my empire. The bustling offices, the young entrepreneurs heading to the incubator space, Josephine reviewing investment proposals with her team. I think I need a minute. I walked to the window, remembering all those nights I'd worked at that card table, dreaming of a view like this. Behind me, I heard the excited chatter of the mentee group, saw their reflections in the glass as they took selfies with their new business hero. Penny for your thoughts? Josephine joined me at the window. Just thinking about something you said at that first dinner, about getting a real job. She winced. I was wrong, so very wrong. No, I turned to face the room, my company, my success. You were right. I did need to get a real job. That's why I created one, several thousand of them actually. The elevator dinged again, delivering another group of aspiring entrepreneurs. I straightened my shoulders, ready to show them how to turn their own dreams into reality. Time to go play shop on the internet? Maria smirked. No, I picked up my presentation notes. Time to build some more empires. The courtroom fell silent as Marvin stood for sentencing. I sat in the back row between Maria and Josephine, watching my ex-husband's shoulders slump under his now ill-fitting suit. The defendant has pled guilty to multiple counts of securities fraud, embezzlement, and corporate malfeasance, the judge began. Should we feel bad? Maria whispered. I shook my head, thinking of all the nights I'd cried over their mockery, all the times I'd doubted myself because of their constant belittling. In consideration of your cooperation in exposing the broader conspiracy, the judge continued, this court sentences you to 5 years in federal prison. Josephine gripped my hand as the full sentence was read. I squeezed back, remembering our conversation from that morning. I've been thinking, she'd said over coffee in my office, about all those dinners where I laughed at your dreams. I wasn't just wrong about you, I was wrong about everything. Now, watching her son being led away in handcuffs, she sat straight-backed and resolute. He made his choices, she whispered, just like I made mine. My phone vibrated. Another message from the office. Our stock had hit a new high, and the first round of mentorship program graduates were launching their startups. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Ms. Alexa, how does it feel seeing your ex-husband sentenced? I'm not here to discuss personal matters, I stated firmly. I'm here because corporate fraud hurts everyone, investors, employees, and the entire business community. My company stands for transparency and innovation, not deception. Mrs. Crawford, Ms. Josephine? Another reporter called out. How do you feel about your son's conviction? Josephine stepped forward, every inch the board director she'd become. I feel proud to be part of a company that values integrity over image. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a graduation ceremony to attend. Back at the office, 30 women waited in the incubator space, ready to present their business plans. The old card table sat in the corner, now bearing a plaque. Every empire starts somewhere. Before we begin, I addressed the group, I want to share something. Success isn't about revenge, though sometimes that's a nice bonus. Scattered laughter. It's about proving something to yourself, not others. But the revenge helped, right? One young entrepreneur called out, making everyone laugh. The best revenge, I smiled, is building something so amazing that those who doubted you have to watch your success from behind bars. Now, who's ready to pitch? As the presentations began, Maria nudged me. CNN wants an exclusive. From mockery to millions, the tech queens rise. Counteroffer? I replied. They can cover our new initiative instead. Which one? The global expansion? The venture fund? This one. I handed her a tablet showing plans for a nationwide network of women's business incubators. We're converting all of Crawford Corp's old offices. Poetic justice, don't you think? Josephine reviewed the plans over my shoulder. The first one opens in the building where Marvin used to brag about his corner office. Exactly. His old office will be the main classroom. The elevator dinged, and Jenny rushed in. The partners from Silicon Valley's top venture capital firms are here. They want to discuss matching funds for the incubator program. Send them to the conference room. I turned to the graduating class. Ladies, ready to show some old school VCs what the future looks like? As we walked to the meeting, Josephine pulled me aside. Thank you. For what? For showing me what real strength looks like. For giving me a chance to be part of something meaningful. The conference room doors opened to reveal a dozen suited men, the same type who'd dismissed my ideas years ago. Gentlemen, I took my place at the head of the table. Let's talk about disrupting the old boys club. My phone lit up with a final message from Marvin's prison email account. I'm sorry I didn't believe in you. I deleted it without responding. Behind me, 30 women entrepreneurs waited to pitch their dreams. Before me, the venture capitalists prepared their checkbooks. And beside me stood the two people who'd seen both my lowest moments and highest triumphs. Ready? Maria whispered. I thought about that card table, about all those nights of doubt and determination, about the girl who refused to give up when everyone said she was just playing at business. Ladies, I addressed my graduates. Show them what empire building really looks like. As the first entrepreneur stepped forward to pitch, I caught my reflection in the window. Not a woman seeking revenge anymore, but a leader creating legacy. The view from the top wasn't about looking down on those who doubted you. It was about lifting up those who would follow. Now, I smiled at the room full of future CEOs. Let's go play shop on the internet.